Becky Denny is typing in her using pronouns she, her. She doesn't have audio, so she's going to type, and then she wrote suggestions for education. Is that that you're wanting to learn more suggestions for education, or are you suggesting that we come up with suggestions for education? And I'll just wait for her to put that in the chat. And while I wait, I will say I'm feeling heavy. I think just the knowledge in reality what's happening is just kind of heavy. But I appreciate everyone taking their time on this Wednesday evening. I put the questions in the chat to kind of start us off. And so I will say, just kind of read off the first one. And please jump in if you want to share. Apologies, my husband's walking in with groceries right now. But I would also say that one community agreement that didn't come up that I always like is step forward, step back. So if you feel like you are being really quiet and you have a lot of thoughts, but you haven't really shared, consider stepping forward and sharing your thoughts. And if you feel like you've shared a lot of thoughts and you're like someone like me who needs to be reminded to step back, maybe think step back, maybe wait that beat to let somebody else jump. So I'm going to step back now, and with the question, do you or someone you know live in an area with limited access to healthy food? And I will step forward as Becky and read what she sent me. Yes, I'm okay with food and energy, but I don't have a good ideas to help others. And so I think we all will speak together to get those good ideas going. Thank you. So again, do you or someone you know live in an area with limited access to healthy food?
So I would say, for me, I don't live in an area with limited access to healthy food, but my friends on the north side have a lot of issues with like lack of transportation and not having their own car necessarily, and it being really difficult to get to a place where they can get healthy groceries, and the quality of groceries that they can get at the stores that are available to them are really different than the quality in other, like people talk a lot about the different schnooks, or the kinds of produce that you can get in the different neighborhoods is pretty stark. Yeah, I mean, I'll leave it there. We can move on to solutions later.
Thank you for that. And yeah, the transportation versus access question is, and quality. Anybody else want to share some feelings, thoughts?
Well, I grew up on the north side in St. Louis, and I have plenty of friends who still live on the north side. My mom still lives on the north side, and access is definitely an issue. And like the other young lady said about the quality, like sometimes the only places that are open are convenience stores, and they may have like 2 apples and a banana and a bunch of canned goods that are dusty, just so that they can qualify for the food stamp program. They have to meet certain requirements to have certain amounts of choices of fresh food, and they consider, canned fruits a fruit. It's just depressing sometimes when you go to the stores. There's access to dollar burgers and 2 for $1 tacos, but not access to anything that's really good for you. you know, if you're trying to get something to eat late at night, sometimes you don't have any choices other than fast food on the north side. So the access is really something that needs to be addressed. I'm finished.
Thank you for sharing with all of that. I will say from like my perspective, I have heard that a lot of development requirements for convenience stores are things to go up in different communities. Community members will put a requirement of a healthy food option. And I had not made the connection that canned food is being considered in that access to fruits and vegetables. So that's and thank you for making that connection for me. Does anyone else have something they want to share on their experience with access to healthy food? I'll pose this to everybody, but since Jess and Amir have shared, I'll ask a question either through your own personal experience or listening to those you know's personal experiences. What do you think is something that could have helped or would help increase access to good quality foods, be that transportation, varieties, everything? There's no idea too big or too small.
Well, the most exciting idea I've heard recently is community members getting together and talking a lot about opening up their own grocery stores. So people owned, people operated, and I think there's some interesting projects that are getting funded along these lines. So that is super exciting. The mobile markets, I think, are kind of a nice stopgap measure. I mean, I don't think it's a permanent solution. And then working on infrastructure for gardens, community gardens, and I think Gateway Greening was floating a new program to install home gardens for folks in their backyards, which I think could alleviate some of the food access issues. So, I mean, it's not like there's one solution, like it's a multi-pronged situation where hopefully we can come at it from a lot of different angles. And things, organizations like City Greens, I think, are really great, where there's like tiered memberships, and so it's accessible for low-income folks, and it's subsidized by folks of higher incomes. So to make things like organic foods or healthy foods within reach of low-income folks.
Yeah, I feel like I know I've heard of a co-op, which is community owned grocery store that is opening up on the north side, which is going to be very helpful. And I think definitely with food apartheid, like green spaces and community gardens are always part of that conversation. Does anybody else have any thoughts or questions, sparks that have come up when it comes to gardens, or I'm sorry.
Where is the community grocery store going to be opening? Where is that?
I will find that out for you. It just got like the final hump that I had to get over, I think last month. But it's been a long time. Sorry, my cat long time like developing. Okay, so it is the Old North Grocery. It'll be on North 13th Street. So I'm not familiar with that spot.
Is it Old
Um,
North Provisions?
No, it's called Old North Grocery. It's a co-op. Um, and it is in 63106.
Is it Mark that's doing that?
Keith McCard is the name that is on Facebook, but then it looks like maybe it has been posted in a while, so maybe I'm on the wrong thing. Because Mark does sound like a name I remember from this.
That's really close to Old North Provisions on 14th Street.
Right, that's what I was thinking of. Yeah.
Maybe I
Which has
am
been
thinking,
around for a while, and I think is a co-op. Is that right? I heard that there was like a new project. I'm not, but I don't know
yeah.
the name or any information about it.
Yeah, same. But I do know I can get that information. So I'm gonna make a little note here to find that. Or to have a WashU law student find that, if I'm being honest.
See, that to me, that's just that addresses like that's not really the north side. When I
Mhm.
think of the north side, that's kind of like mid-north. That's kind of an area that's, I mean, Old North Provisions is catty corner from Crown Candy, and Crown
I
Candy
gotcha.
pulls people from the suburbs, and that's not like the north side that's really, I feel, affected with. I do think see that could be a Lila area because there's not really a grocery store nearby. But when I think of the north side and where people go to Family Dollars to buy food, you'll see
Mhm.
people carts full of food, and it's not really nutritious food. It's, you know, uh, pre-mixed things and things that aren't really healthy. When I think of wanting to really address the needs of the north side community, I don't really, I guess maybe because I didn't grow up there, but I think more further north.
No, I very much agree with that. I'm trying to find where that info was that I saw originally, but I do know the one that is being built. Taja Phonics, who's an excellent food justice organizer, she was part of the bringing it in and placing where it is. So I do know it is in truly Old North. I just don't know more detail. I know in like during COVID-19, I just remembered like that's when the grant money was coming in and they got the loans they needed to help get it
That's
off.
cool. I can get in touch with Tasha. I know her.
Okay, great. Yeah, she would be able to answer that like that for you.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah, and that means maybe because she was working with a group that was trying to do something closer to Fairgrounds Park, which would be north side. North side, north side.
Yeah, Fairground Park sounds so familiar for this.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, then that project might be what you're referring to.
Yeah.
Okay.
One thing that from the neighborhood I'm from in San Antonio, which has its own food apartheid, a issue we went into was when they were bringing in new produce and such, they did not consult the neighborhood, and it was not produce we ate. So there was like it was just like mangoes and such where it was like, I just remember a lot of friends being like, that's a weird looking fruit and I'm not going to eat that. And it was just like, they would have been better off just bringing like pineapple, like approachable, or samples mango. And then I would have eaten all the mango. But that's come up.
Not culturally appropriate.
Yeah, it's just. So I think always community led. Kind of switching gears over, especially we have AK here, with the home energy costs. And I feel like that's just such a St. Louis thing with our old brick buildings, and everything was built in 1904. So does anyone have any experience with like living in a location with high energy costs, or feeling like, you know, cold in your apartment and there's just nothing you can do to make it warmer except turning that thermostat up?
Well, I hate to hog the conversation, but I can relate to all that. I bought an old house in the Central West End, right on the edge. It still has like original windows, and it was built in 1895, so a little bit before 1904, but it's definitely drafty. But I wouldn't trade it for anything. It's my baby, it's my project. I'm working on it little by little. But it's definitely costly to heat. I have a couple of window AC units, and when she was talking initially about how you live in a house that's so hot, I think about it every summer, how it's like I can only really live in certain rooms because the rest of the house is just so hot. I barely even go on the third floor because it's just so hot. So it's definitely a challenge to heat and cool older houses.
Thank you. Yeah, the original windows. I am a sucker for the look of original windows. They just are gorgeous. I just moved out of an apartment with mostly original windows from 1947, I think. And I like cracks. Like every winter, I just felt awful for how much heat I knew was escaping, um, and what that was doing to the environment in general, and just try not to think about the economic cost. But that was a privileged point where I could not think about the economic cost.
Yeah, I also have an old house, so I want to salute anybody else who lives in an old house. Ours is like 1898, and yeah, it definitely has some issues with heat in the summer. The attic is almost uninhabitable, which is unfortunately where I have my computer. So it's there are a lot of fans, and so yeah, I can echo what Amir said. I wouldn't trade it, but you know, I'm lucky enough that it's been able to like fix the things that I really, really needed to fix. But I know a lot of people can't.
Being San Antonian, the high summer cost of keeping a space cool, it's a losing battle, I think, anywhere in San Antonio, on the like 110-degree days. But every senior gets a box fan, and they're really lightweight, so they can travel room to room with them.
It's nice. Yeah, that really is a good program.
Yeah,
Yeah, 110 degrees out now. How much good a box fan does, but it is better than nothing.
It is paired with wellness checks from police officers during heat waves to the elderly. But yeah, those box fans, I volunteered at a social service center that gave them out for people, and it definitely makes a difference. But living the fan life and the space heater life in St. Louis is very real.
Yeah, and I definitely identified with the part of the presentation where AK, you were talking about the costs of investing in either weatherizing your home or you know, having more efficient appliances. So doing what's better for the environment can often be a higher cost at the initially. So you have to have the capital to be able to make that investment, but then your costs can be lower long term. So it's one of the ways that that low income folks are hit both ways again. So I noticed that like we replaced a couple of our double pane windows in the house at the beginning of this winter, and it's like hundreds of dollars, and it felt like ugh. But you know, it's all drafty. We're trying to get ready. So yeah, it's a privilege to be able to do stuff like that.
Very real. Yeah, the high cost to make your home efficient to lower your costs, it's just such a like insurmountable like hurdle to get past. One thing I wanted to lift up from AK's presentation was the point that she made that landlords do not pay utilities and thus have no motivation to update, you know, close those cracks in the windows I had, and no reason to get energy efficient appliances and such. So, you know, with that lens, you know, are there any thoughts on with like landlords and property owners to like put pressure, incentivize them to make those repairs, make those upgrades, invest in their properties? Abby, you've been really quiet, so I'm just going to pick on you, even if you have nothing that you want to say. And share a thought.
It's just weird talking because I'm not in this community, so I don't want to intrude. Thinking about landlord costs and things like that, I grew up outside of Boston, and so kind of having the opposite effect of those hot summer months, we have the freezing cold winter. And how do you take care of, especially in Boston, not only the homeless population in the winter, but individuals in those older apartment buildings that are not well kept up. And a lot of what has happened in that area have been those kind of community check-ins. So no longer relying on like police well-being checks, but relying on community organizations to do that instead. And so there's definitely still a battle. I don't really have an answer to how to fix it. But I know that in our area, it's been through a lot of donations. So you talked about the donations of fans. We do donations of space heaters and things like that. So it's just kind of like the polar opposite. But yeah, that's what I have. I'm still thinking. I've been like trying to find all my documents on my other monitor. But if I have something else, I'll let you know.
Yeah. Yes, the community check-in model is something I'm very interested in. We in St. Louis have had a lot of conversations about alternatives to policing. And so I think, you know, thinking about community organizations stepping in and taking that ownership of checking in on neighbors to ensure that especially our elderly populations are comfortable and safe.
Maybe think about, it seems like it should be a city program offering subsidies or rebates for landlords if they upgrade appliances or make improvements for weatherization and things that are going to have environmental impact and lower costs for utilities. But I don't know if we have the political will, so maybe it could also be a grant-funded nonprofit program. I think that would have a smaller overall pool of funds, and so you'd only, you'd hit a certain number of landlords, but then you would be able to have publicity and like get the conversation started and maybe get the idea out there. I don't know if who would fund that, but it seems like the kind of thing that should be a city program.
Yes, there's, I think, a lot that feels like it should be a city program, I think is our city motto. Um, but the, mentioning political will, that's definitely part of this series, is a reminder to everybody that filing opens November 22nd for the mayoral and half the aldermanic seats. I should say half plus one because the 12th is also having a race. So all the odd boards plus our mayor are up for election this time around. And so this series is timed appropriately where we can, they do not decide what the conversation of that race is. We do. We have that political will and power. So that's my soapbox moment for the evening. Along that route, I guess, of thinking, I know we've been talking a lot about solutions for these items. What would you all want to if your alderman or your state representative was standing in front of you right now, what would you want them to kind of take away from something like this about home energy costs and food apartheid, or I should say?
I can hop in. So like in researching and preparing for the presentation, at every single turn, the stack is, it's just stacked against Black people and people with low incomes. And, I would tell representatives and aldermen to, you're in this position where you can unstack this deck, and you're in the position, we're in Missouri, in a very landlord friendly state, you're in the position to equalize that and to give tenants more rights and to maybe put into the warrant of habitability, which is basically what you need to have a lease in an apartment that's safe. Put something in there that says you need to be able to have heating or cooling that doesn't break the bank and that doesn't, export all of the costs you should be dealing with on people who definitely can't afford it. So I would say you're in this position, you are the person who has the power in this situation, and you're the person who needs to start doing something about it.
I would also say that it's really important to pay attention to these issues because they're costing us as a society in a major way that's sometimes hidden. And so, for food apartheid, the long-term health costs to populations are huge, and they come back to us as a society. In terms of the heating costs and weatherization, in terms of global warming, the costs will be huge long term. So I'm just saying, take a step back and think about it at a societal level, which is your job as a politician. It has immediate impacts in people's individual lives. It also has societal impacts.
Yeah. I think we've got about 3 minutes left if somebody else wants to share.
I kind of have, this is like a random thought, but we do, I'm in the landscape architecture program at Virginia Tech. I don't know if I've met all of you. I wasn't in the meeting last week because I had a meeting with a professor, but we do a lot of work in rural communities of Southwest Virginia. So we're kind of like tucked in the mountains in Appalachia. And a lot of what we talk about with communities is investing where it's needed, not necessarily where it's wanted. And so kind of having that wake up call with community leaders to really understand where the investment is due. And my project is located in St. Louis, so I've just been like studying St. Louis. So it's my privilege to be here tonight with you guys, but I look a lot at the inequities of green space. And I had to do, so I went to St. Louis a couple weeks ago, and I had to do a park audit, and just being able to see the inequity of tree cover in St. Louis and how that contributes to the urban heat island effect. So kind of having this like multitude of different factors kind of playing into it, but kind of going back to the investment of landlords. One of the easiest things that we do, or we've done in a few of our communities over here, is just being able to plant like large trees in front of windows. Sorry, I know this is kind of unseen, but having that one-time investment in your green space to be able to lower the temperature of those older homes to kind of win that battle before the bigger battle of efficiency.